Alright, so shooting in a new venue can get pretty intimidating sometimes. You may not even know where to walk into the building because at certain venues you have to go through security command, sometimes you just go through the normal entrance. I know when I first shot NASCAR, not only was it the first time at a new venue, but it was the first time I was shooting NASCAR. So it was like a double whammy of just new things. And to make it go a little bit easier on myself, I just did some research. I got there early, I asked questions, and I didn't try to do too much, which was kind of hard after doing research and seeing all these amazing NASCAR photos that I wanted to try to recreate. It was a little tough to just kind of hold back and not do too much. So because I'd never shot NASCAR before, you know, the closest thing I shot was cycling, which is completely different. They have 4 wheels instead of 2 wheels, so you know, had to do some research, find some images I liked, and find out any information about the New Hampshire Motor Speedway that I could. The thought process I had going into doing the research was, all right, I want to figure out what angles are best, you know, where is it taken in the track? Is it from the inside of the track? Is it from the outside of the track? Is it up high? Because I just need to figure out where do I need to position myself to get the best photos. So I went to NASCAR.com, looked up a bunch of photos from the New Hampshire Motor Speedway, tried to find, all right, this is a really great image. Oh, that was taken in the pit area. Oh, that was taken at turn 1 from the outside through the fence. So doing this research, I could see like, okay, where do I want to position myself to get these photos? Do I want a great shot of a lot of cars lined up, or do I want just an individual slow shutter pan? Where do I need to position myself to get those photos? Also, when looking at the pictures, you kind of have to realize, okay, what settings are people using? Is it a big depth of field, shallow depth of field? What's the shutter speed? Because with NASCAR, you might assume, oh, they're going 200 miles an hour, or whatever it is. I need a really fast shutter speed to stop that motion, which is true to a point, but actually, when I got my guidelines, because I was shooting for NASCAR, they have, you know, photo guidelines that you aren't supposed to shoot over 1/500th of a second. And that's because if you're shooting at a really high shutter speed, you stop the wheels and it just looks like the car is just sitting parked on the track. Where if you're under 1/500th of a second, more likely 2/50th of a second, you get motion blur in the wheels, but if you're panning a little bit, you can keep the car sharp and it'll actually look like the cars are moving fast. That's one thing you can learn before actually going to the venue, before shooting the sport. You know, what settings am I actually going to need to use? What positions do I want to be in? So doing that research is key. Also, in doing my research, I found out that the first rule of NASCAR is to not get run over, which seems pretty obvious, but because I was shooting for NASCAR, I was actually shooting before the race in the garages while they were doing test laps. So there's cars going in and out of the garages, flying by down the lanes that you have to walk across to get into the garage. You have earplugs in, it's crazy loud, you're not exactly sure where all the engine noises are coming from. So just like going back to elementary school, basic look both ways before you cross the street is something that I had to make sure I was doing the entire time so that I didn't get run over by one of those cars. Next thing you want to do is just make sure you get there early. For my shoot, I tried to get there, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours early before I really had to start shooting, which was great in my case because there actually ended up being a little bit of a snafu with my credential, so I had to kind of run around and get it figured out, which ended up taking, I don't know, an hour, hour and a half, and so I was actually almost rushing just to get set up and get warmed up and get all the pictures I needed to get. Getting there early allows you to just get set up, figure out your shooting positions, make a plan, even shoot warm-ups, because that's a valuable part of getting there early, is being able to just warm up, get used to the cars going around the track, right? If you're shooting basketball or baseball, just getting used to the timing of a, you know, player swinging, player shooting, just getting used to the movement of that sport. So shooting warm-ups, very helpful, and you can sometimes make some great images you can't get at other times. Also, when you're there early, there's a lot of other photographers there. There's more downtime, so you have time to talk and just, you can even ask some questions, which is the next tip, you know, while you're there, of some of the other photographers. And you can, when you're making your game plan, I was looking at, all right, where are all my shooting positions around the track? You know, how long is it gonna really take me to go from one to the other? I could actually go out, check a few out during their practice laps to just see if that's the angle I wanted. So my plan for today was to just stay inside the track, actually, because the race was only a 100-lap race, and which sounds like a lot, but it goes pretty quickly, especially when, if I wanted to go outside of the track, I'd have to walk, you know, under a tunnel, outside the track, and back in, because I needed to be at the finish line at the finish of the race. I just knew I wasn't gonna have enough time to, it would probably be a 20-30 minute walk just out and back to get, you know, a couple photos. So I needed to stay inside the track for this first race I did. So also make sure you ask questions, especially of other photographers. If hopefully you know someone that's there that's, you know, shot before. When I shot my first Boston Celtics game, I had been in the TD Garden before shooting some high school, things like that. This was the first NBA game I shot. It happened to be a playoff game, so it's just, you know, even crazier sort of protocols going on. I made my way to sort of the media room. I actually saw someone that I knew, and she's, you know, a great photographer, super nice person. I was just like, hey, Maddie, I'm not sure where I'm actually supposed to shoot from, or, you know, where do I find out if, you know, our floor position, whatever. She was super nice. She just was like, saw me as this little lost puppy and, you know, walked me up to the suite that we were shooting from and elevated, because during the playoffs they actually had us rotate floor position. So I was only shooting on the floor during the second quarter. She's like, make sure you go down before the end of the first quarter just so you have, you know, your full time shooting on the floor. So definitely very thankful to her. But asking those questions of other photographers, right? Sometimes you'll get someone that's really helpful, and a lot of times you might get someone that's a little bit grumpy, doesn't really want to help you that much, but they'll definitely tell you what not to do because they don't want you to ruin their access or their shots during the game. Also, just be really nice to the security and the ushers, because they are the gatekeepers to some certain locations, and it may be sort of a gray area if you're allowed to shoot there. Some security or ushers might push you away, some might allow you in. I find just smiling, saying hi, even asking like, oh, hey, can I just go shoot here for a minute? You know, as long as you're not blocking any fans, things like that. A lot of times they'll let you, depending on the rules of the stadiums. But it's just helpful to be really nice and polite, because you never know when it's gonna help you out to get that shot you need. So now that you're there, you know where you're gonna shoot from, you just have to remember to not try to do too much. You need to make sure you know what you have to get for your client. Get that at all costs, but you don't want to try to do too much, try to be too creative, especially the first time you're out there shooting at a new venue or a new sport. It's just going to be in the back of your head like, oh, you're trying to run around, do all these different things. Make sure you're just taking it pretty easy that first time. Get exactly what you need. If you know, nail all that stuff, you get it all, then you can try out a couple different things. I know for this, I really wish I could have gone outside of the track to get a couple of different angles, a couple different shots. There were some really cool shots you could get from being sort of like outside of the turn, watching all the cars come up the track, but I just didn't have the time, and I knew I didn't. I could have tried to rush it, but I just wouldn't have ended up with enough photos by the end of the day. And now that I've been to that venue, now that I've shot NASCAR a little bit, I have a better feel for just how the general day goes, how it flows through each event, qualifying, the actual race, post-race celebrations, things like that. I kind of have a better idea of where do I need to be at the start, at the finish, you know, mid-race, which were my favorite shooting positions, and I can hit those and just try a little bit more the next time I'm there. All right, so I hope that helps, takes a little bit of the stress out if you're just following those couple tips of the first time you're shooting at a new venue or the first time you're shooting a new sport, or both. All right, see you next time.